today I'm here with Meg Gibbs. Meg, thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate you joining me in my curiosity.
Yeah.
Um, Great. I met Meg actually at a workshop for the first time, but the first time I was introduced to Meg and her work was at a networking meeting called Now and Center that my business coach hosts. And Meg led the introductory activity. It was kind of an icebreaker, some movement stuff, and it was a great way for us to connect with one another. And I was just telling her how it was really the most unique and interesting introduction at an event like that, and it really, I think it really helped the people in the group to connect, and really helped people just get authentic and get comfortable, and put us in the right frame of mind. So
Yeah.
that was amazing.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, and so I wanted to have Meg join us and talk a bit about her journey to reaching career fulfillment. And of course, it's a journey, and there's no beginning and there's no end, really. So we're going to just hear part of her story today. Meg, if you wouldn't mind just sharing a little bit more about the work that you do right now.
Yeah. So the work I do right now, I bring all of my background and all of who I am into this present experience. And I think, as you said, it's an evolution. So what I was doing a year ago or 2 years ago, and what I'll be doing a year or 2 years from now, it's always that like weaving together. So right now I do a blend of coaching, healing, and movement. And that comes from my background in shamanic spirituality is my sacred practice. And then I've been a modern dancer for 20 years. And so I dance and I use the body a lot in the work that I do. And then I'm a certified coach through the Coaches Training Institute. And so blending all of those skills and backgrounds together creates the work that I do, which is a blend of like ritual and magic and technique, but a lot of it is intuition and intuitively driven. So the people I work with, whoever shows up in the space helps to shape the work that I do. So if I'm working one-on-one with a client, or if I'm working in a group like the group that you were a part of, I go in with some type of idea of, okay, this is what I want them to feel and experience. And I know at that networking group in particular, we go and we're so nervous and we're so overwhelmed, and everybody's like in their head and in their stuff. And so my job, as I see it, is really to just like come down, come into the present, help people feel what they're feeling, not make it wrong, and then we can move through it. Because the sooner we acknowledge like, oh, I'm nervous and I'm worried and I'm whatever, am I dressed okay, then we can get through to the actual connection, to the actual place that we want to be in a networking group. Because most of the time you just hand out business cards and you don't know whose card you have when you get home. And so this is a way to really connect and notice who's there in the room with you.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it was very effective.
Awesome. Thanks.
Yeah. So, and as you said, I mean, it sounds like you've got pieces of the work that you do that have been in your life for a long time, but kind of, and it's in transition and developing all the time. But for about how long have you been doing this type of work?
Yeah. So I have been coaching for 5 years, and I call it coaching because that's what I'm trained in. But the truth is that most of my clients, when we're working together, they'll be like, you're not a coach. And I'm like, I know. We just have to use these words to get people in the door. It's some type of mainstream understanding of what it is. And then once you're there, like I joked the other day, I was talking to someone because I'm moving into like organizational and corporate coaching and working with teams and groups of people, that I was like, I know I can't really walk in the door and just be like, hi, my name is Meg and I make magic happen. And he was like, yes, you can. Definitely do that. And I was like, okay. So it's always that space of like more and more permission, more and more stepping into who we are. So the work I do is like from the perspective of our sacredness and our intuition and body-driven focus. But at the end of the day, people come to me for all kinds of things. So they come to me because their marriage is falling apart, or they come to me because they want to change jobs, or they're feeling lost and they don't know what their purpose is. They come to me for a lot of different things. So I'm not specifically like a career coach or something like that. I really do work with people based on their whole self. And so their whole self is often on a journey. So it's people who have done a lot of work. It's people just like you and me who have gone to seminars and leadership training and, put in the time and done a lot of deep inner work. And there's still something that hasn't quite clicked. And I find that body element really gets people through that threshold that they've been wanting to get through and break through that moment of old wounds or patterns that keep them stuck. So it's a blend of energetic and emotional work, I would say.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's great. I so agree with you. I was calling myself a career coach, but now I really say a career and life coach, because you can't just look at your career without looking at your life. Everything is so intertwined.
Yeah.
So yeah, that makes perfect sense that you're just really working with the whole, and that's what's most effective. So.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Because we never actually, like, I'm sure you've heard this phrase, like, check it at the door,
Yeah.
And we don't, as people, when we go into a work environment, or, you always have your family and you always have the stuff that's going on, even while you're at work. And then the opposite is also true. You go home and there's still work, you kind of have to like bring it, make space for it. So.
Yeah. And I think sometimes people even think that they're compartmentalizing, but not really,
Right. And I would say, like, I'm really bad at compartmentalizing. And so one thing that I like to say is, like, it's much more about being present than it is about like chunking it away from us, because then that's another way that we can sort of like separate ourselves, I would say. Because I love this concept of bringing all of who you are to all that you do, whether it's petting your dog or talking to your spouse or, like just being present. So.
Yeah, I love it. So I'm going to ask a couple scaling questions, and then we'll dive a little more into your story.
Sure.
So I'm wondering, on a scale of 1 to 10, and 1 being like not at all fulfilled, and 10 being I could not possibly be more fulfilled at all, how fulfilled do you feel in your career now?
Yeah, I would, in this moment, because I know it changes, I would give it a 7.5.
Okay.
Because I know we're about to move and make some pretty big shifts in my business. So we're moving in that direction.
Great. And then I'd like to ask, using the same scale, how fulfilled you feel in life in general?
Yeah. So that's like 9.75 to like a 12. My life is extremely full, and also like in a powerfully beautiful, meaningful way. I feel like that's one of the things that I've learned, and both that I work with my clients and just the people in my life, is I'm really good at creating a life that matters to me. And so that's something that I work with people. I said to a client the other day, I want to help you create a life you enjoy. And she was like, enjoy? That's an option? Like, what do you mean I can just like enjoy my life, So I feel very fulfilled in my life in general.
Yeah, that's great. And that's a really big part of why I'm doing this, is that, I talk with my clients all the time that there's so much more possible than they might imagine. And that we don't have to just settle, I guess, for things. Right. And so part of the whole reason for this is really being able to share people's stories. I know there are just everyday, regular old people out there who are also amazing and are reaching that potential and that fulfillment and creating that life that really matters to them. And that's fun and enjoyable and fulfilling. So love that. Can you say a little more about what fulfillment means to you?
Yeah. So I really value meaningful connection. And so that's at the heart of, like I say, people are my purpose. So connecting with people means so much to me. And so I create a lot of space in my life to connect with people. Relationships are really important. I spend a lot of time on my friendships. I have the space in my life to call people back home and to connect with my friends from college, and then making new connections here in Denver. So that feeling of fulfilled would both be like, I don't know, I'm sure you've heard this, but instead of like pushing ourselves and being pushed towards something, the idea for me of purpose and fulfillment is something that grabs me and is pulling me, that is like pulling me towards it. And so that to me is what we're searching for is searching for us kind of thing. So I love that idea. And I feel like as a seeker, which I know I am, and a lot of people in the coaching and personal development realm are, we're always searching. We're searching for more connection, more beauty, more whatever, it is. And I find that fulfillment for me is finding a space of contentment in the midst of that searching.
Beautiful. I take notes because
Sure.
I remember, and so pardon me looking down, but yeah, that is beautiful. Thank you. So I'm going to ask you to think back to a time in your life, and it could be a year ago, 10 years ago, whatever makes sense for you, but think back to a time in your life where if you were rating your fulfillment, those numbers would be lower.
Mm-hmm.
And could you just describe a little bit for us about what life looked like, felt like at that time?
Yeah, so I would say that's like, I have a real easy and fast one that comes in, which is right before I quit my job. So I used to work in nonprofit, and I was getting paid $13 an hour, and I was over giving and under receiving for sure. So I was working a lot, and I was in a company culture where everyone just worked a lot and everybody gave of themselves and kept signing up for more and more. And I was on call for 3.5 years, and it was not a good experience for me because so much of it was administratively driven. And what I learned was that, like, I need people, I need connection, I need some type of transformation. I had somebody who was like a spiritual healer and reader tell me, if relationships are not transforming, then I'm done with them. And that was really interesting because I was in a space of feeling really stuck, but not quite ready to make the next move. So that level of fulfillment was really low because I wasn't, I don't know, I didn't know what the next steps were. And so I was kind of sitting in it until I was ready to move, because I didn't want to just quit my job for no reason. I wanted to have something I was moving towards. But being in an admin heavy position was really hard for me, and it was really out of alignment with who I was. And I found myself, this is part of how I got into coaching actually, is I kept talking to my coworkers about, like, what are your dreams and what do you really care about? And, what is fulfilling to you? And these kind of questions where I was like wanting to talk about things that really mattered. And I found myself getting lost in those conversations, and we would go have these beautiful 45-minute talks about something really intriguing and powerful that they were excited about. And then we would go back to our desk and like type on a computer. And that like friction and that pull was really hard.
Yeah. I'm sure a lot of people can identify with that.
Yeah.
For sure. I hear those same things a lot, so that makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
Great. Well, thank you for sharing. So now what I would really love to hear about is then, what was that journey like from that point to where you are now? And, share as much as you're willing to about, details and specifics, or, how you felt or what you did to get to where you are today.
Yeah. So I was in that job, and it was my first big girl job. So that's how I talked about it. And, I worked in an office and and I knew and they knew, which was interesting, right? Because like, I'm really bad at hiding stuff. I have no poker face. And so people knew that wasn't where I needed to be. They were like, there's so much more out there for you, but they weren't pushing me out. It was just, we were really both clear that it wasn't the best fit. So I had my whole life grown up, my mom and a lot of my immediate family are all therapists. And so I have a lot of the qualities of a therapist, of like, I really love listening to people. I love connecting. I love hearing people's stories. And I like helping people heal and work through things. But I really didn't want to be a therapist because my whole world was a therapist. So of course I stepped like right on the other line to becoming a coach. And I heard about coaching one day, and I actually, because I can get really lost in my head and in the anxiety and our spiral where we go into a research hole, that kind of thing. So I actually made myself not look it up. I didn't want to learn about what coaching was. I didn't want to look into a whole bunch of stuff. I wanted to just feel it for a minute. And I felt this just energy just really sink in alignment. And I was like, okay, well, now what? What do I do with that? And I had there was a coach friend of the family, and she is a very different kind of coach than I am. She was an executive coach, and immediately off the bat charging $500 an hour and just really like, go get it. And that's not how I identify in my world, but I really was like, what is this coaching and what do I need? And so we talked a little bit, and then I looked up coaching programs, and a lot of it was online or over the phone, and I wanted a in-person component. So I found the Coaches Training Institute, and they do experiential learning, and it's 5 months, 1 week in a month, and it's international, so it's all over the world. And I looked them up, and they're one of the founding groups that created coaching in general. And so it's this amazing program that has been like thoroughly vetted and is really high quality training. And so I saw that it was in person, and they had one in Atlanta, which is where I lived at the time. And I knew that with my current job, I wouldn't be able to have any space for this, both as a personal growth experience and as a professional space to start working with clients. Like I was working all the time, crazy hours and exhausted. So I knew that I had to quit my job, but I didn't know how that was going to go or what I was really doing. And I was young, so I was 26 when I started the program. And I've always been one of the youngest people in the room. That's really normal for me. I grew up, like I said, my mom was a therapist. She was also a healer and a spiritual teacher. And so I was one of her students. And we sat in these circles of women. And so I grew up going to workshops since I was like 8 years old. Like it's very normal for me to be in that space. And it's always been really integrated in who I am, which I think is the power that I give my clients, because so many of my clients grew up in a way that spirituality or personal growth is like weird. And for even some people, it's like shameful. Like their parents squish those gifts and tell them, not to be strange or, that kind of thing. And so for me, I was always encouraged to be who I was, and those gifts were really brought out. And so it made space for me to hold that for other people. So I went through coach training, and I decided to quit my job, and I had intended to start a new job that would either be a filler or an in-between, and I didn't end up doing that. I ended up just going through the training and getting clients and going from there. And then I decided to go on and get certified because it felt important to me, not just as a young person, but as someone who wanted to contribute to this craft of coaching. Because I'm sure you know this, anyone can make a business card and call themselves a coach because it's an unregulated profession. And that can really hurt the profession in general, because a lot of people don't even know what coaching is. Like it's not giving advice. It's not solving someone's problem. It's asking questions to call out someone who has their own answers and to find their own wisdom and to touch base with who they are. And those other pieces are really important. And that could be strategizing or mentoring or advising, but it's not coaching. So being able to really honor that field is important to me.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I totally agree. I think that's what makes coaching so nebulous. Like some people just really don't quite know what it means, because
Right.
anybody can say they're a coach. So yeah. Wow. So
I know, I feel like I'm throwing a lot out there.
no, that's great. I mean, that's what it's all about, is your story, right? And it's you're a real person, and you lived that struggle of this is not the right thing, and I'm not happy, and
right.
I just think a lot of people feel that, and it can be really scary to embark on that journey to discovering what it is you really love. And even the fact, like you said, that you in the beginning you felt stuck and you didn't know what it was that you wanted to do, and it caused you not to act for a while. And then it sounds like, things started to happen, and it became clear to you what you wanted to do. What what would you say has been your biggest struggle in getting from there to here?
Yeah. So one of the things I've definitely learned is that I would say these are made up numbers, but 50% of it is how good of a coach are you? And 50% of it is how scrappy are you at getting clients, like the business side. And so a lot of people fall into one category or the other that they're really strong at. So I'm an amazing coach and I'm really gifted at the work that I do. And I've had to learn a lot about business because I've never run a business before I started doing this. So we went out of this coach program with all of these skills, and at CTI they don't actually do a business building component, so you're kind of given out into the world without how to market, how to brand yourself, how to talk about what you do other than like having conversations and coaching people and doing the work itself. So part of the hole or the gap for me was that I didn't know how to run a business. So I had to then invest in that piece. And so I invested and did a business mastermind, and I did a spiritual business building program, and I did this and that and all these different things. And for me, I would say the struggle has been I could be really stubborn and I don't want to do it other people's way. So there's a lot of methods out there that work for people. And I really value the personal experience. So if somebody's working with me, everything I do is customized to them. I don't have a 5-step program. I don't have something that is, here's my signature system. And I know that that sells well, and I know that that's an important part, but it just, for whatever reason, I have been really rebellious against saying yes to these methodologies that are proven and work for other people, because I wanted to find my own way. So I would say it's been a much slower process for me than other folks that might have gone about it in a more traditional setting.
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. I think everybody wants to sell you too their proven method,
Right.
but yeah, that makes sense that you really want to do it in your own way, in the way that feels right for you. And it sounds like, that's even reflected in the kind of coaching you provide for others.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So what support then? It sounds like you took some other courses besides the CTI coach training. You did some other courses to get that business piece. What other kinds of supports did you need along the way?
Yeah, so I definitely have like coach friends in my life, and I have some mentors. So it's been interesting because everybody talks about like getting a mentor, having somebody, don't be the smartest person in the room. Make sure that you're always with people who are more experienced. And I'm really good at that. But the struggle that comes with that is that then I'm like, why am I not up there? Why haven't I figured it out yet when they're 3, 5, 10 years in front of me? So the other piece that was important is I had leadership and coach friends who I went through training with, that we were all on the same page. We were all starting a business at the same time. We were all creating it. So that was really helpful, that both that expert of like, of course, I've hired a number of different coaches and done a lot of different work with people. And I would say that diving into the personal work, because that's my favorite thing, that's what fuels me. Always doing my own work is really important to me, because if not, then if we're not growing, we can't grow other people,
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Great. Yeah. So it sounds like a real mix, like you said, of those who maybe were further along in their journey, who had some of that expertise, people who were more your peers at your same point, and then the personal work.
Mm-hmm.
So this is my $1,000,000 question. This is the one that really just is, I think, it's what sparked this whole curiosity project for me.
Sure.
Is wondering what you see as the necessary, and I'm calling them ingredients,
Okay.
to finding that deep level of fulfillment in your life and in your career.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a big question.
Yeah.
I think it really depends on what you value, right? Because the things that work for me are not going to be the things that work for everybody. And so I would say the first thing I focus on is I really focus on building a life that I love. And then alongside that is creating an aligned business. So the work for me, what do I want to say? Like my mom always talked about that we're lucky if we can keep creating a better synthesis of the work that we do, and we keep bringing more of ourselves into it, and we keep bringing our skills, and we keep bringing these new things. So I feel like the work that I do has been a big evolution of that. And I will say at times coaching has been unfulfilling because I didn't have enough clients, or the people I was working with one-on-one, we were aligned and we were doing good work, but I was missing some other component, of community in my life or that kind of thing. So when I moved to Denver, I moved here a year ago, and I'll just tell you a quick story about this. So I knew two people. Both of those people have not been a big part of my life this past year. So it's been really interesting to shift out of, like, I remember my first month sitting on a couch and calling my friend back home crying and being like, I'm so lonely. I really miss my community. I have no doubt that I'm in the right place at the right time, but I just haven't met them yet. And so it was really hard. And then this thing happened that was totally strange and magical, where I'm part of this LGBTQ community online. And I made a post one day where I was like, hey, would anybody ever be interested in like meeting up with other queer people and eating tacos? Because I love tacos and that would be fun. So like, what about a queer taco Tuesday? Just like randomly, I put this out there. And if you have suggestions, let me know. 30 people started commenting. Lots of people liked it. And I was like, oh, okay, this is here. This has legs. People want to do this. So I created with a friend of mine, and we co-created and hold this group that's called Queer as a Taco on Tuesday. And so we created this group that every other week we go to different taco places around Denver, and it's free, and you just go pay for your dinner somewhere. And it's literally about making friends. So it was all about, like, I didn't want to be alone eating tacos. And then it created this community of like safety and appreciation for people who might not have that in their lives. Like we just did it last night, so I'm kind of on that high from it. And I can't tell you how beautiful it is for somebody. At the end, it was getting kind of quiet and dying down. And this woman across from me, it was her second time coming, and she was like, it must be really nice to look around and see the success of what you've created, and that people are just like connecting and communicating with each other. And for me, it's all about friendship. And that was the point of, like, there was someone who said, oh yeah, I joined a couple of groups and then I never felt like I really belonged. So this is one of the only things that I do that I feel like I have a place. And it just like touches my heart so much. So that's an example for me of like, I had a hole in my life. I knew I needed community, and I knew I loved tacos. And I was like, I love queer people. Who wants to come eat with me? And so out of that, like, that was not a business venture at all. Out of that, there's been this funny crossover of all of these queer people coming into my workshops. So now one of my niches that kind of found me is what I'm calling like personal growth for queer folks. And so it's just this space where, because I wanted to create something that meant a lot to me, it started meaning a lot to other people. And sometimes business can be that easy. Sometimes it can be really hard, but what if it was that easy? So that to me is an example of my focus on creating a life I love. And then it coincided with this business in alignment with who I am.
Yeah, beautiful. That's
Yeah.
awesome. I love it. I love it. That's so fun. Yeah, and as you're saying that, I mean, what really keeps, I think the word that keeps coming into my head around that is sort of authenticity.
Yeah.
And really just being exactly who you are.
Yeah.
In work and in your personal and in your professional life.
Right.
And having, like you said, that alignment to around what you value.
Yep.
And it really starts to click. And
Yeah.
that's a concept I've been exploring a lot in this past year.
Yeah.
And how to be more of me, and how that can further my business as well.
Oh yeah.
So.
Well, and I think we have rules that we make up in our head, right? Like, oh, I can't, one of them for me is, I had a mentor say to me, like, you can't walk in somewhere and talk about spirituality. Like, you have to do a bait and switch. You have to give them what they think they want, and then you can walk in the room and make the magic happen. And I was like, I hear you. And I think that's true. I honestly do. I believe that as a business tactic, but that actually isn't who I am. Like, on this call, I'm very clear about this is who I am, and this is the work that I do. And so when I'm working with people, I want it to be that way so that they have permission to be themselves. And so the more that I'm myself and the more I bring into my business, the more you bring into your business, the more your clients are going to find you, and they're going to like resonate with you because you're not holding back who you are. And it makes a big difference.
Yes, I love that. I think that's beautiful. And I think that's so true. And I love that it is almost like permission. The more I'm me, the more, and it kind of goes to that vulnerability, right? If I can be vulnerable enough to be who I am, it's okay for you to also be vulnerable.
Yeah, right. Right. Well, in this business is extremely vulnerable. Like, I was telling my partner, I was like, almost everything I do scares me. Like, whether I'm writing an article or I'm working with a new client, or when I did the networking thing for Now and Center, like, I know in the moment it's going to be beautiful and fine and amazing. But up until that point, every part of me is going, are you sure you want to be this much? Like this much you in the world? So, and there's for whatever reason, I just don't have a filter around that I stopped. It's not that I don't care what people think. Like, I don't want to sound that way, but it's that I know how important it is for someone to be themselves. And I know the pain of suppressing who you are. So like, honestly, fuck that. So if you show up and you give me more of you, that shows me that it's safe and it's okay to be more of me. And our world really needs that right now.
Yeah. Yeah. And, I congratulate and commend you for being a leader in that, because I think that it's a scary thing for a lot of people. I don't think most people feel truly comfortable doing that. And so it really takes people who are willing to take that risk and be the leader in creating that. And what an amazing world. I mean, what an amazing world is it already, but how amazing if more and more and more people can really be who they truly are.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's like at the heart of so much of what we do, because for whatever reason, we're told growing up that it's not safe to be who we are. And then you don't even have to be something totally different. It's just the truth of who you are, So yeah, helping people heal that is really important to me.
Yes, me too. That's definitely core at the work that I do as well.
Yeah.
So obviously having career fulfillment in life in general is very important to you. It sounds like you've got some new things on the horizon as you're continuing to build. Is there any piece of that you want to share? Give us a sneak preview.
Yeah, absolutely. So I hold these monthly workshops in Denver that are in person because I work with my private clients over the phone. So I like to do a mix of in person and over the phone to kind of build that community. And then also, I'm really energetically sensitive, and as are a lot of my people. And so working over the phone actually allows me to feel people's energy and see them in a way that's not distracting with a visual component. So when we work in person, there's a lot of energy and healing work that happens that's kind of a surprise to me. And so we're doing our first outside workshop July 1st, and it's called Welcome Home. So it's all about coming home to who you are, all of the stuff that you and I have been talking about today. And it's in Denver, and it's a Sunday afternoon, and I'm excited because we're going to be walking a labyrinth and then in a little park beside it. And so connecting with nature and feeling held in that community, because especially in Colorado, not only is it so beautiful, but it's so much a part of who we are, and like as a culture here, that people love going outside and hiking and being in nature. So this is an opportunity to connect and be with people, so you don't have to just like go up a mountain by yourself. Yeah, and then I'll say, like, so my work is shifting, and instead of calling it coaching, we're actually going to start to say that I'm creating transformational experiences for people. And so this Queer Taco Tuesday is an example of that. Like, it's a small thing, but it makes a big difference in people's lives. And so everything from the one-on-one coaching I do, like, that's an experience. That's an experience often of touching your higher wisdom or some part of you that is there for you that you haven't been able to work with yet, or some type of like spirit guides or connection that's bigger than you. So a lot of what I do, we're going to shift into this realm of experiences. So like at Now and Center, that was an experience for people, you know. I wouldn't call it coaching. I would say we had a connection experience. So that's the space that we're like moving into.
Love it. Love it. Love it.
Thank you.
I'm curious, on your Welcome Home workshop, is that only for existing clients, or do you open?
Oh, no. It's a completely open community event. So yeah.
Gotcha.
Yep.
Okay. Cool. And as I told you earlier, like, I'll make sure and get your links.
Yeah.
So that if people are interested, they can check it out. It sounds
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. Well, Meg, is there anything else that you'd just like to share today that goes along with what we've been talking about?
Well, so I think of like when people are looking for what's next for them and they feel lost or confused, or my favorite people to work with are actually people who already have a sense of who they are, and they're doing their work in the world, and they have ripple effects, and you know, whatever that looks like for them. Like, you're definitely an example of that. I love working with people who are already on their journey. And so when I think of what's important in building fulfillment, I think of the things that are so simple that bring us joy. And I think of how it feels to like read a good book, or eat ice cream, or have a conversation with somebody I love. And so it's like, if I took 5 more minutes a day, like that's sort of my challenge to people, of if I took 5 minutes today to do that thing that feels fulfilling and loving and kind to myself, like, oh my gosh, if you did that for a week, if you did that for a month and put that into practice, how your life would shift. And those big questions about who am I and what am I up to in the world can start to get a lot smaller, because it's like, oh, like I said, I love eating tacos with queer folks, and now that's a part of my life. So yeah, so that's the only thing I would say that's like a practice for people to play with.
I love it. I love it. Yeah, that goes very much in alignment with the kinds of sort of challenges that I offer my clients as well. And you can really get traction from that. And I think it just has to do with that energy, right? And when we're putting that, intentionally putting energy towards things that we care about, that has that ripple effect that you're talking about. So that's beautiful. And you know, who can't take 5 more minutes a day, right?
Well, that's the thing, is like, we don't want to set ourselves up to fail with like, try this for half an hour or an hour, blah, blah. It's like, no, 5 minutes, give yourself 5 minutes.
Yeah. Beautiful. I love it. Well, Meg, thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, and I totally encourage anybody who's watching this to check out Meg and her work. I'll put her links in the comments or the description, and you can see what she's up to, or join her at her workshop on July 1st.
Yeah, that would be awesome. And I definitely, one of the things I like to do is when people come to my workshops, I give a special like way to work with me one-on-one. And so if your people watch this and they get to the end and they've showed up and they've, you know, been with us through this period, like, I'd be happy to offer them something special as a discount. So just when they email me or reach out to let me know that they watched this recording, and then I'll honor that.
Okay, great. Thank you. I love it. That's great. Beautiful. Thanks so much.
Of course.